You know that feeling when you have about 50 tabs open in your brain at the exact same time?
Oh, absolutely. And they're all demanding attention.
Right. And you can hear the audio playing from one of them, but you have absolutely no idea which tab it is.
It is the worst. Just this underlying hum of stress.
Yeah, exactly. Whether you are prepping for a high-stakes meeting right now, or trying to synthesize just a massive amount of new research, or honestly just feeling that heavy drag of information overload on your mental bandwidth.
Which is pretty much everyone these days.
Totally. You are dealing with a very specific kind of modern fatigue. And this deep dive is designed to address exactly that feeling.
It really is the defining cognitive challenge of our time. I mean, we are operating with these incredibly sophisticated biological processors, but we are feeding them this constant, unrelenting stream of data.
Just nonstop.
Nonstop. We're always bracing for the next notification or mentally drafting an email while we are trying to hold a face-to-face conversation.
Which never goes well, by the way.
No, it doesn't, and it consumes a tremendous amount of background processing power, which, leaves very little capacity to actually focus on what is right in front of you.
Which is why we are pulling from a really compelling piece of source material today. We are looking at a post titled 6 Surprising Ways to Meditate, and this is from the March 10th, 2025 edition of the Quiet Rich newsletter, written by Jade Bonacolta.
A really fantastic issue.
It is. The overarching mission here for us is to look at realistic, highly tactical ways to reclaim that mental bandwidth, but without needing to, escape your entire life to do it.
Right. No mountaintop retreats required.
Exactly. And what I appreciate right away is how this source addresses the realities of a high-performance mindset. Even when you've been exploring mindfulness for years, it is so easy to fall back into the trap of thinking that, well, that if you aren't sitting perfectly still in some silent minimalist room, you somehow aren't doing it right.
Yeah, that is a very stubborn stereotype. There is this lingering assumption that meditation requires the complete absence of thought.
Like your brain is just a blank screen.
Right, that you have to somehow just switch your brain off entirely. But the source makes a crucial distinction here. Mindfulness isn't about emptying the mind. It is simply about getting rid of mental clutter by actually noticing the clutter.
Okay, that makes sense.
You aren't deleting the 50 open tabs, you are just finally looking at them objectively.
The newsletter actually brings in a brilliant analogy for this. It was originally coined by Tim Ferriss, and it compares our daily thoughts to a thunderstorm.
Such a great visual.
He really is. For most of us, our default state is standing right out in the middle of that storm. We're getting soaked, the wind is knocking us around, and we are frantically trying to yell at the rain to just stop falling.
Which obviously doesn't work.
Shouting at the sky rarely does. But true mindfulness isn't about controlling the weather. It's about stepping inside a house, closing the door, and observing that exact same storm safely through a sturdy glass window.
If we look closely at that analogy, it perfectly illustrates the shift from participation to observation. Well, when you are participating in every single anxious thought, your nervous system is trapped in a reactive loop. You feel every raindrop as a crisis.
Ah, I see.
But when you shift to pure observation, when you put that pane of glass between you and the storm, you create a psychological buffer. You are signaling to your brain, I see the stress, I acknowledge the to-do list, but I don't have to let it dictate my physiological state right now.
That is powerful.
It is. For anyone listening who feels like their mental CPU is overheating, that shift is how you regain control. You aren't artificially suppressing your reality, you are just changing your relationship to it.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the source gives us 6 methods to actually build that glass window.
Yeah.
Starting with the first one, which directly challenges the idea that you have to be perfectly still.
Right, stillness myth.
Yeah, you can actually practice mindfulness in motion. The first approach is walking meditation. The framework is surprisingly straightforward. You go for a walk, ideally in nature, and you focus entirely on the physical sensation of every step you take, along with your breath.
Just tying the mind to the body.
Exactly. And when your mind inevitably wanders off to that huge presentation you have tomorrow, you just notice the drift, and you gently bring your focus back to the physical feeling of your feet hitting the ground. Left, right, left, right.
What's fascinating here is the mechanical reason this works so well, and it is particularly useful for people who feel physically restless when they try to sit on a cushion.
The ones whose knees start bouncing immediately.
Exactly. For a busy professional whose brain is conditioned to move at 1,000,000 miles an hour, sudden, seated silence can actually induce more anxiety. It feels entirely unnatural.
It feels like you're doing something wrong.
Yes. But when you tie your attention to a physical, repetitive rhythm, like the left-right cadence of walking, you are utilizing your body's kinetic energy to ground your mind. You are giving your brain a tangible, physical anchor to return to whenever it tries to open another tab.
I can definitely see how that rhythm helps, but let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
The source suggests walking in nature, which is great if you have a quiet trail nearby. But what if you are walking in a busy city? You are dodging commuters, waiting for walk signs, maybe dealing with loud sirens. Doesn't all that external chaos completely ruin the grounding effect?
That is a really great point, and it's a very common hurdle people bring up. But the chaos doesn't ruin the practice. It actually becomes part of it.
Really?
Yeah. The goal isn't to ignore the sirens or the crowds. Going back to the thunderstorm analogy, the noise of the city is just more rain.
Just more rain hitting the glass.
Precisely. If you are practicing walking meditation in an urban environment, your practice is simply noticing the sound of the siren, acknowledging it, and then returning your focus to your next footstep. You are training your brain to maintain its internal rhythm regardless of how chaotic the external environment becomes.
That reframing makes it so much more accessible. You don't need a pristine, silent environment. You just need your feet.
That is a very resilient form of focus.
Which actually connects perfectly to the second method because it takes another completely routine physical task and turns it into a focal point. Jade suggests we can single-task our meals with an eating meditation.
This is an area where our modern habits are so deeply ingrained. I mean, how often do you actually just eat?
Oh, almost never. I am usually reading an article, replying to a message, or at least listening to something while I chew.
Right. It is always paired with consumption of information.
Always. The rules Jade lays out for this are deceptively simple, but incredibly strict. You have to eat alone. You must put your phone completely out of sight.
Out of sight is key.
Yeah, not just face down, but away. You take small bites, intentionally chewing your food 10 or more times per bite, and you close your eyes to deliberately notice the texture, temperature, and flavor. When your mind pulls you back to your inbox, you just return to the taste.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, this practice is aggressively targeting the state of perpetual anticipation that defines so much of our lives.
Perpetual anticipation, I like that phrase.
We are constantly allocating our mental bandwidth to the next thing. We rush through lunch to get back to the desk. We rush through the project to get to the weekend.
Always living in the next hour.
Exactly. By deliberately single-tasking a meal, you are forcing a hard reset on that cycle. Sensory experiences, like the specific crunch of a vegetable or the exact temperature of a bowl of soup, are neurologically demanding.
They require processing power.
Yes. When you close your eyes and focus entirely on them, you pull all of your processing power into the absolute present.
I totally understand the neurological benefit there. But practically speaking, let's say you were at the office. You are sitting alone in the break room, staring blankly at the wall, chewing each bite 10 times.
It sounds a bit weird.
I imagine that might make a lot of people feel incredibly self-conscious or socially awkward. How does someone navigate the friction of just trying to do this in a normal public environment?
It is entirely normal to feel a bit of friction or awkwardness at first because you are actively breaking a social norm. We use our phones as shields to look busy and important.
Oh, totally. A phone is the ultimate don't talk to me shield.
But the discomfort of sitting without that digital shield is exactly what you are trying to observe. If you feel awkward, you just note, I am feeling self-conscious. And then you bring your attention back to the flavor of the food.
You just let the awkwardness be the rain on the window.
Right. You are reclaiming your own time. You are deciding that for these 15 minutes, your mental bandwidth belongs entirely to you, not to your inbox and not to the perceived judgment of your coworkers.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
You are essentially starving the anxiety of the attention it usually demands.
You beautifully put.
And speaking of how we direct our attention, the next two methods shift the focus away from physical tasks and toward compassion, starting internally and then moving outward. Jade introduces loving-kindness meditation.
For those unfamiliar with the background, this is often referred to as metta meditation. Metta is a Pali word that translates roughly to positive energy, benevolence, or loving-kindness.
And it has a lot of research behind it, right?
It is a highly researched practice with profound effects on emotional regulation.
The newsletter breaks this down into a really elegant 10-minute practice. You find a quiet spot, you close your eyes, and you begin by intentionally inviting love, health, and happiness into your own life. You silently direct that benevolence toward yourself first.
Which is the hardest part for many.
Yeah. Then, once you have established that internal feeling, you picture a loved one vividly in your mind. And you imagine taking that exact same energy, the love, the health, the happiness, and sending it directly to them.
The sequencing of that exercise is the entire key to its effectiveness. You have to generate the compassion internally before you can project it externally.
Why is that sequence so important?
Because this can be a significant stumbling block for high performers who often rely on a very harsh inner critic to drive their success. Many people would never speak to a colleague or a friend the way they speak to themselves in their own heads.
Oh, that is so true. We are ruthless with ourselves.
Absolutely ruthless.
If you are used to operating on self-criticism, sitting down and directing loving kindness at yourself probably feels incredibly foreign, maybe even unearned. How does someone push through the resistance of feeling like they're just, I don't know, reciting empty affirmations?
By recognizing that this isn't about reciting affirmations, it's about firing different neural circuits. When you operate purely on self-criticism, your brain's threat detection center is constantly engaged.
You see yourself as the threat.
Yes, you are treating yourself as a problem to be solved. By forcing your brain to deliberately generate warmth and patience internally, you are actively shifting your neural pathways away from that threat state. It creates a baseline of emotional safety.
And once you have that safety,
Then, when you extend that exact same feeling outward toward a loved one, it builds a profound sense of connection. Stress inherently isolates us, but meditation structurally rebuilds our sense of belonging.
it fundamentally changes your posture toward the world.
It really does.
And if we are talking about harsh inner critics, there is probably no area where we are more critical than how we view our own bodies. Which leads right into the fourth approach, which is the body scan meditation.
A classic technique.
The source points out a really stark reality here. It is exceedingly rare for any of us to spend 10 minutes thinking about our body without judging it in some way.
This raises an important question for you, the listener, to consider right now. When was the last time you paid specific attention to your shoulder or your lower back or your stomach without either wishing it looked different or being frustrated that it ached?
Wow. Yeah, it really is almost always tied to a grievance. We notice our bodies when we are in pain or when we are scrutinizing ourselves in a mirror.
We treat the body as an object to be evaluated.
But the body scan asks for a completely different relationship. You lay down or sit comfortably, close your eyes, and for 10 minutes you slowly check in with your physical form. You start at the toes and meticulously scan upward ankles, calves, knees, all the way to the crown of your head. You're just cataloging sensations and moving on.
What you are practicing here is the art of pure, neutral observation. If we bring back the thunderstorm analogy, a tight muscle or a sharp ache is a lightning strike.
And normally you flinch at lightning.
Normally, your reaction is to tense up, get frustrated, and try to fight it, which only creates more physiological stress. In a body scan, you are looking through the glass at the lightning.
Just watching it flash.
Right. You are noting, there is tension in my jaw. How interesting. You aren't trying to fix the tension. You aren't grading your posture. You are simply gathering data.
It removes the narrative from the sensation. You aren't a bad person because your back hurts. Your back just has a sensation of tightness, period.
Exactly. Observation without judgment.
Moving on to the final two methods, the source transitions into utilizing anchors to find clarity. Method number 5 is sound meditation.
This one is highly effective for modern workers.
Jade Bonacolta recommends finding a quiet place and putting on noise-canceling headphones to play soothing audio. She specifically highlights a YouTube nature playlist called Autumn Forest. The practice is to focus entirely on the nuances of the sound, and when your mind wanders, pull it back to the rustling leaves.
The utility of this external anchor cannot be overstated, especially for individuals whose internal monologue is simply too loud to confront directly.
Because silence isn't always relaxing.
For a lot of people, sitting in total silence isn't peaceful at all. It acts more like an echo chamber. If you sit in silence, your inner voice might immediately start shouting about an upcoming deadline or a financial worry.
Yes, silence can sometimes amplify the very tabs you are trying to close.
Exactly. So by introducing an external auditory anchor like the complex, random, but soothing sounds of a forest, you give your brain a safe focal point outside of its own internal loop.
Why the noise-canceling headphones specifically?
They are vital here. They act like the thick walls of the house in our storm analogy. They physically block out the unpredictable environment around you, while the curated audio track provides a steady, predictable pattern for your attention to rest on.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because the final method is by far the most popular one mentioned in the source, and it's less about observing the present and more about architecting the future.
This is a phenomenal exercise.
Method 6 is visualization meditation. The prompt Jade uses is striking. You have to imagine yourself exactly 10 years in the future from the day the newsletter was published. So we're looking at March 10th, 2035.
10 years out.
And the crucial constraint of this exercise is that you must assume you had absolutely zero chance of failure over that entire decade.
That single constraint, removing the possibility of failure, is what makes this exercise so exceptionally powerful.
You grab a pen and paper, and you write down a highly detailed description of that specific Tuesday in 2035. Where are you waking up? Who is in the house with you? What is your physical health like? What exactly do you do for work? How often do you travel? What is your baseline mindset? You detail the entire day under the assumption that everything went perfectly right.
And the response to this specific visualization was massive. Jade notes that she created a 14-page PDF companion workbook to guide people through this, and within just 1 month of its release, 180,000 people downloaded it.
That is insane. 180,000.
It is a staggering number of people actively seeking a structured way to clarify their trajectory.
But what is it about projecting 10 years into a flawless future that actually helps someone declutter their mind today? I mean, isn't there a risk that dreaming about a perfect 2035 just makes you more stressed about how far away you are from it right now?
It could if you view it purely as a goal-setting exercise, but as a mindfulness practice, its purpose is different.
Also,
When you remove the fear of failure, you bypass all the anxious, practical constraints that usually govern your thinking. You stop worrying about what you should do according to your industry or what seems safely attainable, and your true, unfiltered values rise to the surface.
because you aren't filtering for risk anymore.
Right. Once you have a vivid, deeply felt picture of what actually fulfills you, it acts as a filter for your current reality.
So it highlights which of the 50 open tabs in your brain actually matter.
Precisely. You look at your to-do list for today, and suddenly it is glaringly obvious which tasks are actually laying the bricks for that house in 2035, and which tasks are just meaningless digital noise driven by immediate anxiety. It isn't about escaping the present. It is about aligning your daily actions by providing an incredibly clear North Star. It burns away the fog of indecision.
The fact that 180,000 people raised their hands for that kind of clarity really speaks to the broader ethos of the source material. The Quiet Rich isn't just an isolated article. It is a philosophy that reaches over 190,000 subscribers every single week.
It is a massive movement.
And the core concept is right there in the name. It argues that true wealth isn't just a metric of money. It is about being rich in time and rich in the ability to control your own attention.
Because the ability to direct your focus where you want it, when you want it, without being hijacked by internal anxiety or external demands, is the ultimate form of modern autonomy.
And the source includes a fantastic postscript that underscores who is actually prioritizing this. Jade gives a shout out to the new members of their Archimedes cohort, specifically noting that this community is filled with CEOs, founders, best-selling authors, and keynote speakers.
High achievers across the board.
Yeah, she names members like Ben Meir and Colby Colton. It really dismantles the myth that high performers are just ruthlessly grinding 24 hours a day without taking a breath. The people operating at the absolute highest levels are explicitly prioritizing this exact kind of mental maintenance.
They have to. They recognize that a cluttered mind is fundamentally inefficient. They aren't using these meditation techniques to escape from their ambitions. They are using them to sustain the cognitive bandwidth required to achieve them.
That is a great distinction.
But they know that you cannot maintain peak output if you are constantly standing out in the rain getting battered by the storm.
So what does this all mean for you as you navigate your own complex schedule? It means that finding calm is a highly customizable process. You don't have to force yourself onto a meditation cushion if it doesn't serve you.
Not at all.
The objective is to treat these 6 approaches like a toolkit. Try walking to ground your kinetic energy. Try single-tasking your lunch to break the cycle of anticipation. Experiment with directing positive energy, scanning your physical sensations neutrally, utilizing an auditory anchor, or mapping out a fearless future.
Just find what works for you.
Exactly. Your only assignment is to test them out and discover which one provides your specific mind with the best view from behind the glass.
And as you consider which tool to pull from that kit first, I want to leave you with a thought that builds directly on that 10-year visualization method.
Oh, I like where this is going.
Jade, Had you imagine a flawless, failure-free life a decade from now to help clarify your overarching values? But what if you applied that exact same constraint to your immediate short-term reality?
Like tomorrow.
Exactly. If you took just 5 minutes today to visualize a perfectly mindful day exactly 24 hours from now, imagining yourself facing tomorrow's specific inevitable stressors, the gridlock traffic, the difficult conversations, the urgent emails, but picturing yourself responding to every single one of them with total unshakable observation rather than reaction.
Just watching the lightning.
Yes. Could you effectively reverse engineer a calmer life one single day at a time?
That is an incredible challenge. Taking the massive scope of a 10-year vision and zooming it all the way into how you handle tomorrow morning's commute.
It changes everything.
We hope this deep dive has provided you with some actionable strategies to close out a few of those mental tabs, step inside the house and watch the storm with a bit more peace. Stay curious, keep experimenting with what grounds you, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.